Thank you for listening to the BJJBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to help you get the most out of your grappling ability and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back to the BJJBrick Podcast. Today, episode 358. We're going to talk about systems and combinations, and we're not talking about locks, to lock your locker in middle school, high school, the gym locker. We're going to talk about systems and combinations of jiu-jitsu. As usual, I got my partners in crime, Byron and Joe, here today, and we're going to have a good time. But first of all, I would like to talk about the one, the only, Abraham Lincoln. We got a quote from him today. The best way to predict your future is to create it. What do you guys think about that quote?
Kind of spot on. I don't know that it's always possible, but I think that should kind of be what you're shooting for all the time. Not letting other people dictate, like on a small scale. Don't let other people decide what kind of day you have. You know, take it into your own hands. If you want to have a good day, have a good day. Do the right things first thing in the morning. Do things to set yourself up to have a good day. I think that's kind of the way you could boil it down to the smallest component. But if you did that every day, that ends up with you writing your own history the way that you want it to be written.
You know, Joe, that also sounds like a recipe for success when you start jiu-jitsu. You know, get up, train, do the right thing every day, drill, listen to your teacher, listen to your coach, and the small things add up to large things.
I like how you brought it to like the small things. Like today I'm going to have a good day, and regardless of the stuff that's happening around me, if my boss is upset or my boss is giving me other things, I'm going to be in a good mood. I'm going to take that on with a good attitude. And I really like that, Joe. I was thinking more of on a large scale. You know, the best way to predict your future is to create it. So try to forge your future the best that you can. It's not always realistic to think that you don't have total control of your future. There are so many variables that are outside of your control. But if you get the variables that you have going in the right direction, it sure gives you a lot better odds of having a future you greatly enjoy or are satisfied with, something that makes you feel like you've achieved something. Part of that's doing it day by day, and part of that's looking at the bigger picture and making sure your boat's sailing in the right direction from the beginning. But I think creating your own future is a great thing. But so many of us don't think about that. You know, if you want to be a great guard passer, but you have no takedowns or you have no ability to sweep, you got to do that first. You got to get on top. So that's just part of the recipe. So today I'm going to work on my takedowns. Today I'm going to work on my sweeps. And maybe tomorrow, or realistically, maybe in a few months, I'm going to start working on my guard passing reliably. Or maybe I get some people that really want to work on their guard, and then I could, partner up with somebody who's really matching up with my training purposes. But I like that quote from Abraham Lincoln.
Well, Byron, I think after listening to you, I figured out what I've been doing wrong. I've been trying to be a better guard passer. But what I thought that meant was I would pull guard and somebody would pass my guard.
Oh.
So I've been doing this wrong the whole time.
You've been a very good guard passee.
Yeah, so I guess I had it backwards. But, hey, maybe that'll give me some goals to shoot for this month.
Gary, speaking about things to shoot for, I have an off-the-mat lesson, and I'm going to take you guys back to World War II. I don't know if you guys could remember that far back. I know you guys are a little older. 1943.
Okay.
So I know you were around, Gary, probably a teenager or so.
Are we going to be in the Pacific, or are we going to be over in Europe? Where are we going to be at?
So this takes place, the gentleman's name is Abraham Walt. He's a Hungarian mathematician, or was. And the thing that would happen is these airplanes would go out on these raids or these missions, and they would come back, and they would be shot up. And I sent you guys a couple of pictures of these planes. And you're looking at a picture, the side of it is gone. Like, big enough to where two guys could jump out of the side of the airplane at the same time. It's bigger than a doorway would be in the airplane. It's just gone. Another picture, it has the tail, I don't know, the bottom third of the tail is just missing, and there's bullet holes riddled throughout the plane there. It's just an amazing thing that these airplanes could go out, run these missions, get shot up, and come back. The amount of abuse these planes could take is really phenomenal. The other part that why it's even a story is the mathematician sat down and he calculated where all the bullet holes were hitting the planes. Like, what are they doing? What are they targeting? How is this happening? And he really found out, and I sent you guys another picture. It's a diagram of an airplane, and it's just riddled with red dots. A lot of them on the wings. There's a couple of patches on the wings that there's none, and then a lot of them on the tail, and then there's a patch in the middle section where there's none. There's no holes in the engines, and there's no holes in the cockpit. So, like, the thought originally was, hey, we need to put more armor on these parts of the wings and parts of the fuselage and parts of the tail, so it takes these bullet holes better. And that sounds like a good idea. Does that make sense? Did you guys see the pictures?
Yes. Man, the second picture you sent showing all the bullet holes, that's crazy.
The problem is that's exactly the wrong places to put armor. It's just the fact is, no of the bullet holes are showing up on the engines because if the engines got shot, the plane didn't come back. If the cockpit got shot, the plane didn't come back. If the midsection of the tail got shot, or the fuselage got shot, it didn't come back. Like, these are critical areas to take a bullet. These other places, like you're seeing in the pictures, is just amazing the amount of damage they could take and still come back to base and land, probably some sort of a crash landing, because they are just phenomenal. Like, if you were in that, you would be scared to death. Like, oh, we're going to die. But it's just, there are amazing illustrations of just kind of wrong thinking. Like, people wanted to patch up these areas that were getting damaged. Those areas were surviving. Taking shots to the engines, you can't do that. You don't come back. So we need to armor up those spots that you don't see bullet holes. Totally out of the box thinking. But it has a survivability bias towards what are you seeing happening. And so I was kind of thinking about that. Like, that's kind of a fun story. How could we bring that into jiu-jitsu? And I know we have Joe here. He's smart about pulling things back onto the mat. But I was just thinking, let's just say you go out and out of your last 10 matches or your last 10 rolls, 3 of them got caught in guillotines. That seems like getting guillotined a lot. I need to work on my guillotine defense. Let's look at this a little bit differently. Maybe your shot that you're taking is getting you guillotined. Maybe your style of guard passing is getting you guillotined, and not your guillotine defense. Maybe you're escaping, 5 other guillotines, but it's just you're getting caught in so many guillotines that it's a problem for you. So it's more important to look at maybe before that step, what's happening. And yeah, you want to alleviate the submission you're getting caught in, but maybe you're making some mistakes before that.
Yeah, I like that. I agree with Gary. Those pictures are amazing. And it's a testament to the pilots that they can land the plane in that condition. But one thing I was thinking when you were talking, Byron, is when you look at the picture with all the red dots and you think the engine's not getting hit, the fuselage or the cockpit's not getting hit, and I'm assuming that has to do with design and the way that what the planes are orientated towards each other in battle, so that those areas are maybe designed to be protected by the areas that you see are getting all shot up. And I kind of thought about jiu-jitsu and how there are some things that you have to protect at all costs. Like your neck would be a good one, obviously, but winning the grip battle, you got to do that at all costs. And then there are other things that are maybe not so important. Maybe your opponent does get a grip, but it's not the most important thing to break it right away. Or I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just think maybe you design a game so that the most important things are protected.
I like it, Joe. I'm going to go back to you were talking about those pilots. I see the first 2 pictures you sent, Byron, and I'm like, how the heck did this plane land? And I'm not talking about crash landing or ejecting or whatever. Those planes actually landed. The skill level of those people landing. And, I'm just going to drag it back on the mat. If you have the brand new white belt trying to, who hasn't spent the amount of time on this, we're going to crash. We're not going to make it back. But you have that person who spent all this time, training and, perfecting their craft. It's just amazing to think that somebody could land that craft with the amount of bullet holes. You're coming out of that match, with a twisted ankle, with you had problems with your knees, but you just didn't give up. You had that warrior spirit, and you just kept going, and you made it to the end of the match, win or lose. You fought through it. And, I know that is kind of a ways from what you were talking about, Byron, on, your lesson, but that's the lesson I'm getting, just these incredibly talented individuals at their job, at their sport, can land a plane, can, survive multiple submission attempts. I'm looking at the submission attempts like each one of those bullet holes. Somebody's coming at me with a submission attempt, and, I'm surviving it and getting to the end of the match, win or lose. I may still, even with all those bullet holes, maybe I can submit this person. Maybe I can grab an ankle in a transition and finish it. Or, maybe I can end up in side control and, win by points. But it's just that perseverance, that skill level, that, doggedness that just keeps you going. You can perform under pressure, which is what we're taught to do in jiu-jitsu, and you're going to survive these encounters.
That's great, Gary. One of the things I like about jiu-jitsu is, unlike some of the more traditional martial arts, it's just accepted from day one that there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. There's more than one way to approach closed guard and all the open guards. And this conversation here I thought was pretty interesting because Byron brought the lesson, but all three of us took something different from it. And I think that's kind of a mirror of one of the things I like about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, but I would still think mine was the best. Joe, yours is the second. Yours is the second, and Byron's is a wee third.
Well, if you're looking for an interesting story, his name is Abraham Walt. And if you just type Abraham Walt and World War II, he pops right up. Or if you just type in aircraft survivability bias, it's pretty much the main thing about that. And it's really a neat story to learn about the process of figuring out how to protect the people in the airplane and some false assumptions that were made and how he figured out what parts were actually important to protect.
I am going to check him out, Byron. This is, something I've never even heard of.
He blogs every day.
It's interesting. But the big thing is, like, what's really curious to me is, like, what Joe was talking about. Like, how does the cockpit and the engines not get hit?
So that's the survivability bias. The reason why there are no red dots on the diagram with the engine is because those guys don't come back.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so those red dots represent all the planes that came back.
Yeah,
okay.
They don't they have no data from stuff that crash landed in the battlefield. So everything that comes, I guess I didn't explain that very well. Only data they have is stuff that shows back up on the airbase, and that's what they have to work with. So if the cockpit gets shot up,
you probably explained it fine.
I doubt it.
I'm sure it was your current audience too.
As you've probably figured out by now, Joe and I, we're not the smartest guys alive.
Well, they're also they're multitasking, like doing 9 different things at the same time here. Gary's often making deals.
Yeah, I'm coloring. I got my coloring book out.
He is terrible at staying in the lines. Guys, real quick, I got to mention an audiobook. If you're new to jiu-jitsu or want to start jiu-jitsu, your first year of Brazilian jiu-jitsu is an audiobook, just like a podcast, to get you off to the right track. Basically, I sit down with you, talk to you. It's about 2.5 hours long about all the stuff you can expect starting jiu-jitsu, and I want to get you finding the right gym, your first month, what you should be focused on, and what techniques you should really be working on versus what techniques maybe you should avoid, and all the way up to doing a tournament. If you want to do a tournament, that's great. definitely an option that you don't have to do, but I want to cover that as well, because that's sometimes people get in and it's like, I want to compete. Well, you've been training for 2 days. I want to compete. Okay, let's get you a little bit of a game plan and maybe a system to work within, so it goes well. But check it out. It's $11.99. The money goes and supports the podcast. It's in our shop. There'll be a link to the BJJBrick shop in the show notes, or just go to BJJBrick.com and find the shop there.
Byron, is the shop fully open right now due to this COVID situation?
Yes.
Yeah, Gary, but you have to wear a mask when you go online to order.
Oh, okay.
That's the only requirement.
It's good. I like that, Joe. That way we'll stay safe.
There you go.
And I'll be wearing a mask when they get the file digitally.
Man, you guys are bringing tears to my eyes that you've got this safety down.
I hope you have
I'm
safety
so
glasses
proud of you
on.
guys. I forgot those too. I'm in bad shape. But we can always make an audio book. Your first year during COVID, how to survive COVID-19 in 2020.
Wow. Yeah, I don't. I'm still learning the lessons on that one, Gary.
Yeah, we still got a little ways to go.
So just employ the anti-Nike method. Just don't do it. Don't go out. Don't do business. Don't get your hair cut.
Oh, man. Joe's already wrote the first chapter. All right, guys. So quickly, I'll bring up everybody to speed here. The podcast is changing a little bit. It used to be a weekly show, which the bulk of those were interviews with various members of the jiu-jitsu community, sometimes outside the community. And there's 357-ish of those episodes out there. A lot of those episodes are topic episodes as well. So we would do a topic episode at the end of the month. And so we're getting away from the interview style of episodes for the time being. We may venture back into that from time to time as well. But right now we're focused more on a different type of episode. At least I am. And we'll talk about that at the end of the show if we remember to bring it back up. But we still want to do every month, get together, have a great time, talk about a topic, and put that out every month. So here we are, man. I was super pumped to record this today with you guys.
Man, it's like a reunion. The three Stooges on stage again.
Yep, we got the band back together.
Yeah, I was super pumped, but lost a little bit of my enthusiasm once we started. Okay, so the topic is, and I think Gary mentioned it. He did a great job introduction, man. That was one of the more solid introductions, at least for Gary to do. Anyway, systems and combinations. These are two big concepts, and I think it'd be great to start off with some definitions of what we really mean by that. Do either one of you want to take a definition there and kind of talk about what you think of it?
I'll take this, what I would consider the smaller of the two topics, which is just combinations. And, I guess there's some techniques where a singular setup gives you two options. I guess you could look at that as combinations, like, when you from closed guard sit up and go over your opponent's shoulder and control his arm for either a Kimura or a hip bump sweep. Usually, as you go into that, you've got either option. But I think more frequently or more effectively, it's when you attempt one technique and it elicits a response from your training partner, like his go-to or the average person's first response is to pull away or whatever, then you've got an answer for that as well. And so an example would be more like you're fighting for the scissor sweep, and the way he's defending exposes his neck. You get a deep enough grip, and you transition to the cross collar choke. And there's a bazillion answers, but I guess that's kind of what I would consider to be the definition of combination attacks in jiu-jitsu.
I love it, Joe. It's a good thing to start learning those. I'll go with the systems here. It's a little more advanced, and I think it's a little bit more artistic. It's a martial art, and we say that without really thinking about it a lot of times. But after a while, after a few months or years or decades, whatever, you start to do things that you do, whether they're right or wrong or just a little different than everybody else. But that's the way you grapple. It might be because you tweaked your back 5 years ago, or because you got caught with the same move 27 times in a row, and so you don't want to do that again. Or something happens along the course of your journey, and you do things that are a little bit unique to you. And we kind of start to find our own system. And I guess I kind of got off topic already, but really a system is you could have a closed guard system. You could have a mount system that when you get there, I have for a long time used a triangle system. So I would have, I'd work it from a lot of times closed guard, and I would have 3 or 4 really reliable setups that would force my opponent or training partner into a triangle position, one arm in, one arm out, with my legs working to get tightened up in position. So I'd have several ways to force that to happen. And once I got that to happen, and really once I got the close guard, I was working my system. I was working my setups. And then once I got the triangle tight, maintaining posture control and things like that, they were largely stuck. Granted, I had the skill to keep that particular person there in a system that I had that every solution that they brought to me, I had some sort of answer. It wouldn't always work, but okay, he's stacking me, I have to do this. Okay, he's putting his arm over here, I have to do this. And just no matter what the problem was, I had been in this system enough times to where I could address whatever the person was going to bring to me in the correct way. And it was kind of a nice system to have. So, yeah, I think Joe's dead on. Combinations, I think you'll start finding your first combinations. Probably your coach will teach you that pretty early on. But to find a system, you do need to have a little more comfortable. Man, you need to be a little bit more comfortable in certain places and work with them a little bit longer and develop it's just a feeling sometimes okay, I got him going. Not only is he in side control, but he's in side control, and I have this arm over here, and things are going well. I have a bunch of things to do, no matter what he's going to do. I think I've got him, and he has no idea. That he is well within your system if that's the case. Gary, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question for you, or Gary can chime in and answer this. I hadn't thought about it until this moment, but as you're talking, I'm wondering if you could even break systems down into 2 separate groups, because some systems, like the Kimura trap system, is kind of based on you're looking for that Kimura from every position. And then there are other positions that are like an attack the back type of system, where it's, here's the ways I get to the back. That's my main goal, get to the back, and then I implement my system. Am I right in that, or no?
Just kidding. I think you're onto something there.
I hadn't thought about it before, but it does seem like you could break them down that way a little bit.
And that's just the beauty of some submissions. Like Gary will find a Kimura anywhere. I have a Kimura from one spot. Gary?
Yeah, but half the time I don't even really know if I'm looking for a Kimura. I mean, if I'm looking for my main Kimura, from side control to grab it there, I'm looking for it. But, I sometimes I don't know if I'm just I catch him in transitions. I guess it's just that awareness as that arm moves away from the body. But a lot of times I don't even know if I'm going down, taking a systematic approach to getting it. I'm just looking for a better position, and the arm comes unglued from the body during some movement. And it's just for me, it's like I'm looking for a piece of cake. I'm not going to pass up the cake. I'm not going to pass up that elbow. Yeah,
Gary, I'm listening to you talk. I'm wondering if you could kind of say that there's guys that are like submission specialists, Kimura specialists, but that doesn't necessarily mean you follow a Kimura system at all. Because my understanding of a Kimura system would be that I use it to sweep, I use it to escape, I use it to take the back. There's so much more to it than just attacking it as a submission.
Good point. I didn't even think about that point, but yeah, there's a ton of sweeps off there to take the back. You can use a reverse Kimura and move that elbow out, take the back, sweeps. Like you said, I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that's a good point.
So Gary, you think back to when you were just a young grappler. starting jiu-jitsu?
Wait, I was never.
Same.
When I was starting, I wasn't young, Byron.
Okay, you were probably, younger grappler.
Okay.
When did you start? How old were you?
35.
35. Okay, so that's young, Gary. We're all over that.
Well,
that's really
well,
young.
It is. It is now compared to where I'm at now. So yeah.
You were young and much better looking grappler. Like I throw it to Gary first, and I just got to insult him a whole bunch of times. So thinking back, what was your first combination that you were able to link a couple things together?
I would say tap with the left hand and then tap with the right hand, back to back. Because I felt like that's all I was doing was tapping. But, I'm going to go back to what Joe said, right off the bat. I think one of my very first combinations, I'd go back and forth, would be guillotine. Well, somebody's in my guard. I'm in close guard. Guillotine, Kimura, hip bump sweep, and, just back and forth till something hits. But I think that was probably my first one. Or it could have been side control. I'd grab a far side underhook, pull them up to his side, move north-south looking for a Kimura. If they defend the Kimura, then I would drop back into an armbar. So it would have been one of those two. Those were my two big things when I first started. I can't tell you which one was my first one, but they were both used a lot.
How about you, Joe? What was the early combination that you found?
Man, I guess this probably has to do with our age, but I would say similar. I don't know, Gary, when you talked about going side control, did you talk about going knee on belly?
I was never a big knee on belly person. I would stay side control and just scoop it and then move north-south. But, yeah, knee on belly is perfect.
Other than that, I pretty much was the same as Gary, except early on I like to pop up the knee on belly and then take that arm and swing around for either a arm bar or stop halfway in between for the Kimura.
Awesome.
How about you, Byron?
Oh, thanks for asking.
Well, you were going to tell us anyway. I might as well try to be polite.
I didn't even know Byron was on the podcast with us, Joe.
I've been mostly quiet.
Yeah.
My first combination attack, and I do remember it well. It was from the guard, and it was against everybody I tried to do it against. But I would
armbar.
Try an armbar, and my armbar was pretty much garbage, but it was okay enough sometimes for other struggling white belts. But a lot of times they would pull their arm out because I didn't have good control over their posture, and I didn't get a good bite on the back of their head with my leg. So armbar, they pull their arm out, and then I would scoop up their head and try to get a triangle. And that was it. And I think all of these systems are common that you do an attack, they do a predictable escape, and you have an answer for that. It could also go, you do an attack, they kind of stall you or stop you a little bit, maybe slow you down, and you have an answer for that. Or maybe you just, another way to do a combination is to do an attack, and then they think they're defending something, but you never really wanted that, and you just wanted the other thing anyway, so you kind of combined it. But I found early on, it was much easier to get my second submission in this series than it was to get the first. And being on the other end of that, I would often find that it would be not too hard to escape the first submission, but by the time they came up with that second thing, the second attack or the third attack, I was so far behind the ball, they would get it pretty easily.
I can remember sometimes just rolling, and I get out of that first submission, but if right after I get out that first one, you or whoever else I was rolling with would catch me in the next one. And it was almost like you let me out of that one. Like you said, it's that system-based approach. You're waiting for it. And I just remember I'd get a smile on my face. Even though I was getting ready to tap out, I was like, man, that was good. I just remember wanting to get to that level where I could pull that off, where I could do as I called them, sneaky stuff like that. And that's when I thought jiu-jitsu really started getting fun. Because before that, I would just go for, let's say, a Kimura. And I would try it for 5 minutes in a round if I had to. I'd just keep going and going and going. By the time the round got over, my partner's wrist was sore and forearm for my, forearm digging into it and really got nothing out of it, except I felt like I was, trying to pull an elephant through a wall. And, but it really got fun when, I would fake that and go for something else. If that didn't work, go for a sweep. And that's when I really, really started enjoying the sport.
I think it's nice to look at what we did early on and just everybody else out there. Like you'll find, whether you've got 20 years or whatever on the mat and you've got tons of different combinations, or you're brand new. Like if you're brand new, you'll find some combinations and it will change jiu-jitsu for you like almost overnight. Like you still, like for me, I had to learn the armbar and I had to learn the triangle and I had to get okay at both of them. But then when when Coach John was like, hey, do the triangle after he escapes your armbar, it was like, that made jiu-jitsu a lot easier to land submissions. And so being able to kind of piece those together, you're going to find that it gets you get a higher success rate when you're able to combine your attacks. And it could have just easily been a failed armbar to a sweep, or a failed sweep to a triangle, or different things. But kind of combining some things together, it does make things a lot easier for you. And it's very fun.
Byron, I'm thinking about your combination, the armbar from the guard missed to a triangle. And, I'm sitting there thinking I do it all backwards. I do the triangle. And if he defends the triangle or even, tries to posture, then I go straight to armbar. And I'm like, why did I come that way? But I've always never really been very good at the armbar from the guard. My triangle was light years ahead. And I think that's, why I'm opposite, why I've always went triangle first. And if I'm having trouble getting it, then I just pop over the head and hit an armbar. But it's kind of, I think maybe your best submission might be the first one you go for. Where I always liked in the guard, I like to go for the Kimura first. And then I would go guillotine. And then I'd go back to Kimura. And then I would throw in a hip bump sweep if that didn't work. But I'm wondering if more people go to their best one first, just because, the first one you learn, the one you're better at.
Could be. One thing I want to touch on here, guys, before we move on is how important fundamentals of the position are, and like fluidity of movement is. Byron, you were talking about the different combination attacks from closed guard. And it's really dependent on you having free hip movement, and being able to pivot on the small of your back and move your hips. When you think about mount and transitioning to technical mount and all the different options there, the arm bars and cross collar chokes and taking the back, and, that ability to sort of put your weight on your opponents with your hand and free your hips and transition freely, those are really key. And probably the best thing we can do to get better at our combination is not necessarily to learn more techniques, but to get better at those fundamentals that allow us to pull the techniques off. I'm talking to myself here.
I like that, Joe. That's a good point.
Yeah. As I know Joe spent a ton of time, on fundamentals of foot sweeps and, wrist control, because I know Joe really likes a foot sweep, and when it doesn't work, he has a hold of that sleeve still, and he jumps up into a flying triangle. And I know that's one of his main combinations, and I know you got the basics down well on that, the fundamentals.
Active aerial hips. That's yep, that's it.
Yep, Joe and I would probably cripple ourselves if we went for that move.
Yeah.
I like how you don't throw me in that. Gary, I'm in that group too. I would be hurt.
Actually, you're not in that group because you actually, one of your favorite combination is the Inamari roll to flying armbar, which I don't know how you attempt to pull that one off.
Yeah.
It's fundamentals, Gary. That's all I can say. We talked about some of our early combinations. What's a more recent combination that you've either worked on or developed?
For me is heavy on the head. I'm always really strong on my collar ties. I'm always trying to, be very, very heavy on your neck, on your head. And, I'm just looking, I'm going to go back and forth to it. I'm going to, pop and, try to put your head into the mat from standing up. And sooner or later, you're going to get sick of it, and you're really going to start posturing hard. And I'm going to let you posture. I'm changing levels, and I'm going to put you on your back. That's, I've really been focusing on wrestling a lot, but I've really just been focusing, pressure on that head and, have them just get sick of it and pop up and level change, and it's over, hopefully.
For me, and I think the same thing probably for you guys being training for quite a while, a lot of our current combinations are just what's in front of us. After you do some, you put them on the shelf. You learn some new ones, you put them on the shelf. And then, like, I throw up omoplata, and then, you know what? It's easier to do this wrist lock right here. Or I do omoplata, and they roll, and you know what? There's an armbar right there. You just kind of build a little bit of a catalog of combinations. But I think of a few that I'm actively, like, okay, what are the most recent ones I've done? Like the past couple of years, I really like to butterfly guard and work sweeps and work off balancing. And I like to do that and then also work guillotines with that. So sometimes when they save themselves, I'm able to snatch up and grab their head. That's been a real fun. I've been liking, I guess pre-COVID to force half guard and work a variety of combinations from there, from yet again attacking the guillotine from half guard to Darce and to passing the quarter guard and a couple different back takes around the corner there. But just those are kind of what have been more recent in my jiu-jitsu development for combinations. None of those are something that I couldn't have done as a newer player, but they just, I guess that's what I'm kind of working on now. None of them are super complicated or take anything special to work on for me. Joe, how about you? What's been a more recent development in a combination?
Well, early in the year, Jake Fox came down with you, Byron, and he crushed me. And he said something to the effect of, I know 3 techniques and 2 of them are pressure. And so I actually, and before we made this episode, before we recorded this, I was thinking about the different positions and what my preferred combinations from them were. And when I got the top side control, I thought about it for a while, and I just put pressure plus. So whatever combination I was starting with, it was started with pressure, and then whatever develops from there. And what I'm getting at is, smarter and more technical pressure. Not just I might be bigger than my opponent, I'm going to smother him, but applying smart pressure to get your opponent to put an arm where he shouldn't be putting it, or to turn away from you, or something of that nature. So I think that's what I'm doing, is trying to work pressure into my game a little bit more.
I love that, Joe. How do I say it? It's more like you're not going after a specific move. You're putting your opponent in dire straits. You're making it so uncomfortable that they're going to make a mistake, and you're going to capitalize on whatever it's there. It may be pressure to a Kimura. It may be pressure to back take. Who knows? But you're starting that first one with pressure. You're making this guy so uncomfortable. You're turning the heat up. You're cooking this guy, and that baster is going to pop out, and you're going to take it.
Oh, Gary. Oh, that's why we can't do every podcast every week.
Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way.
And just when I thought we were, not
that much
friends.
Pressure.
Yeah. No, I just meant Joe was cooking that guy so bad that he's done, which I meant the baster is popping out, and then Joe's submitting whatever limb pops.
Keep talking.
You're not
put myself in for Hall.
Actually, I mean, technically, Gary's talking about like a turkey, the little timer thing. That's not a baster, though. The baster is what you would scoop up the liquid and put it over the top of the turkey.
As you can tell, I'm not a very good cooker.
Chef Gary.
Oh, man. That was awesome. That was funny, Gary. I think someone was going to say something relevant after that, but I don't know what it was.
Well, hey, I got something relevant.
Okay.
You're talking about combinations, and it's fun when we start learning them. And the kind of cool thing is I've been watching Becky, Byron's wife, train a lot, and she's been working a lot on her Kimuras and reacting to how somebody moves. It's like, hey, he moves this way or he's rolling this way. Hey, we got an arm bar. He goes this way. What do we got? And I just think it's cool the way she's asking questions and looking for that next spot, because most of the people she's going with are much bigger than her, are much stronger. Yeah, well, not counting you, but so I mean, sometimes,
like you said, Gary, some of the people she grapples with are stronger than her.
Yeah, but I just think it's cool. I just have really been enjoying watching her, kind of go for a Kimura system, and watching, the way she's evolved the position, the questions she asks, and how she's moving from position to position and cooking that person each time they try to escape.
Yeah. So when the Kimura becomes more of a position and less of a submission, I think you're switching there to a system. When it's, for me, it's a I'm attacking the Kimura. I want to finish the Kimura. It's a basic combination of things I'm trying to pull off. But when Gary locks up that Kimura, I'm in a system. I don't know, he might attack my leg after a few seconds. Like, he's got lots of answers to lots of things I might bring up. I only have one or two things to try. But
yeah, I like that where you're saying you're using a submission as a position, as a system. Because I look at the Kimura grip. Half the time I just get the Kimura grip to stop your pass. I may get it to stop your posture. I may get it to sweep. I'm not necessarily just getting it to look to tear your arm off. A lot of times it's just a means to get me to a better position or a means to stop you to get to a better position.
And man, it is means.
Yeah, when you're using it like that, Gary, I would say you're playing within a Kimura system.
Yes. Yep.
So let's just, it's kind of fun just kind of personalizing these as we talk about combination systems. Anybody want to share a system that they use and kind of how it works?
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I use the BJJ system, Byron. What I do is I get on the mat and I try to tap you before you tap me, and that's my system. But no, I mean, I guess we've talked enough about Kimuras. My other thing I like to do a lot is leg locks, and thank you so much. I've learned so much of leg locks. Everything that started me on leg locks came from Rolly Delgado, from in person, from private lessons, from his legal leg lock video, a legal leg lock video. I've learned so much off of that and just picking his brains. But, that's the foundation that's, really helped my leg locks. But, just a submission of leg locks, I may start off, and I always start off with a basic straight ankle lock and, Rolly Delgado style, single leg X, trying to finish from there. But, we got some very good people, that you can't finish from there. One thing I've been using a lot is, I loosen the grip up and, maybe they try to pull out and I go right to another submission he taught me, the Kavaka lock. I'm looking, straight for that. But, we've got 50-50 inside heel hooks. I go to double outside ashi. I'm going to a 411. Just being able to transition. And, and that's not even counting toe holds. That's not even counting knee bars. But, I just think there's so many combinations and so many paths as you try to defend one submission attempt. I go to, another position. Like a lot of times if I miss that straight ankle lock, I may move my hips and move into 411, or I may go the other way and move into a 50-50, or I may go double outside ashi. So, there's a lot of, different ways to keep attacking. And from each one of those, you got 3 or 4 avenues to pursue depending on how your partner, tries to get out of that submission attempt.
Yeah, that's your leg lock system is a good way to just talk about a system. When Gary is attacking my legs, I know full well I'm in a system, and I'm not escaping a attack on my foot. Like I'm not escaping a straight ankle lock. I'm not escaping a knee bar. I have to escape the leg entanglement in general in order to get out of that properly. I could also choose to try to attack, which goes poorly, but I'm in your system and I can't just deny the first attack and think I'm going to be good. So that's a good way to define that, Gary. And yeah, that's fun. And thinking about a system that I like is, you mentioned foot sweep. I do like to foot sweep, and that leads me to a particular type of guard. I don't know what that means, but foot sweep is super fun. It's really deceptive.
Not for me.
But it'll lead me almost to a position where I can leg drag almost immediately, and from there I'm working to hop on the back. And so I think I have, and much like you guys with your systems, you need to have ways to get there. And so I have multiple ways to get to the leg drag part of my game. I can get there from top. I can get there from turtle position. I can get there from, as you're escaping side control, I put you back in a leg drag. And I have a way with my foot sweep to get there from a takedown fairly reliably. A lot of times they'll react a little differently, but that's fine too. But so you need to have a funnel to get the person where you want them in your system. And then right there from the leg drag, get on the back. And then I have a series of things to do from the back to eliminate defenses and to get a fun attack, key or no key. So that's kind of a system. I think also a thing to look at is when this gets thrown off, it doesn't work. So if somebody has me if I'm using closed guard, this system is not in play. And I maybe my leg drag would work great on them. Doesn't matter. I'm in closed guard. I'm in the bottom. I'm on closed guard. There's no leg drag for me to work on here. So sometimes taking somebody out of a system is another way to think of these things, because if you're always in the system that they're comfortable in, they're going to seem like they're brilliant on the mat. But if you can take them out of that, and the simple thing that we've all felt before is a top player playing bottom. Like you take that guy who always plays top and put him on the bottom for a little bit, and they kind of suck compared to what they usually can do. Like you take somebody out of their system and put them in a new thing. Gary puts me in the leg lock system, which I'm trying to work on. But, my skill level goes down several notches compared to Gary's. And I think it's a way to look at it, even if you don't really have a full system yet, is if you could take your opponent or training partner out of their system, you'll be in a lot better shape. One of my favorite systems to look at is Bernardo Faria's system, his deep half guard, his sweep from there, so he could find the deep half guard from basically any position. You could be on his back, and he could squirm and wiggle down to deep half guard. He could pull deep half guard. He has, there are so many avenues for him to get to that. He controls you in a certain way. He sweeps you in a certain way. And then you end up in a particular guard that he's passed 1,000,000 times because it's the guard he swept you to. It's not your guard of your choosing. That is an awesome system. Joe, we haven't talked about any of your systems yet. Would you like to bring that up? I seem like I'm saying the word system a lot.
Into the system.
Yeah, that's the idea, I guess.
I don't know if I have any particular systems that I play, but I'll just go here. I like the same side sleeve and grip with my left hand and a cross collar with my right hand. And if I'm no-gi, I like wrist control with my left hand and a collar tie with my right. And that's pretty consistent from standing up to several different guards. So I don't know if you'd call that a system, but it's something I always look for. And it's something, I feel comfortable if I can get there from a number of different positions. I'd also say that half guard, I hadn't really thought of it as a system, but I've got a series of sweeps that work really well from there. And like you said, Byron, I hadn't thought about it before, but I like top half guard too. And so when you sweep somebody from bottom half, you're sweeping them right into the position that you're most comfortable from passing from. So, I guess that's kind of it where I'm at right now.
I like it, Joe, and that's a great way, like your half guard thing. Not only do you get a sweep, you get to sweep into your guard of that you've passed a bunch of times. Like I'm not a half guard player.
Yeah, if I had a top game system, which I don't really think I do, but my passing strategy is pretty much force half guard, and I'm pretty comfortable from there. So that works well. And then if I get swept from there, I'm right into what I would call my A game. So
nice. See, that's a good system. So you could think of this: as long as Joe is in a half guard, whether it's your half guard or his half guard, you're in his half guard system. Now, if you're able to get side control or mount on Joe, the system's not going to work. If you're playing full guard on Joe and he can't force half, it's not going to work. This system has fallen apart. So he needs to find as many ways as possible to get into that system. Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say 100%. That's just it. It's a very positional based system, and then the goal is to, like say, have easy and reliable routes to get there. I don't know if anything's ever easy, but kind of reliable routes to get there.
Yeah. And, Byron, because I roll with you so often, I can think about how no matter what, it turns into leg drag. And, I didn't know where you're going to go with your system, but, it just made me start thinking. It's like, okay, cool, I got a Kimura. Oh, wait, he just leg dragged me. And you are always finding unique ways to get in that leg drag position. And then once you're there, now you're ready.
I could try to start to do something. So I guess it would be kind of fun to recommend something to somebody. I think all of our first combination attacks are pretty solid. Anybody can start those. They're fairly simple. Really, if you could take your best submission, even if it's not good, you do have a best submission or a best submission you've trying to start, and then think, how do they get out of this? Or just go ask your coach. Or ask your teammates that escape. Like, okay, I do a guillotine. Everybody gets out the same way. Well, let's ask somebody. Okay, what should I do next? Oh, it's a sweep. Oh, it's it's a transition to a plata. Whatever. Like, just ask them. What's my follow up? That's what's great about jiu-jitsu is they'll tell you the answer to what they just did. They should. In most reputable gyms, they'll just answer. They'll just help you out. You're on the same team. Not that it's even some they're your friend. They should be. So they'll help you. Just got to ask. And that's probably where you should go first. You shouldn't, if you are a guard player, you shouldn't be looking to, I want this awesome mount system. If you can't get in mount, it's not going to work for you. But you might as well start with, I grab the lapel this way, or I do this. What combinations do I have after I start my first attack? Any recommendations, gentlemen, about somebody trying to find their first combination?
Well, it's not their first combination necessarily, but it's just general advice as you're learning combinations. So if you learn combination A and B from the guard, and then you learn combination C and D from top side control, and so on and so forth. So you're learning two different techniques to pair together with each position. You end up with a ton of techniques to try and keep sharp. So if you find that you like the armbar from the guard, when you start developing a mount game, maybe that should be one of the first things you look at. You're not learning a completely new submission. You already know it very well from another position, and you just throw it in there. So, and this kind of gets back to, like Gary's so good at Kimuras. So you learn a Kimura from the guard, you learn it from half guard, you learn it from mount, and then you see it everywhere. So I guess that would be my only piece of advice at this point, is to try and find moves that you like, techniques that you like that can be hit from a number of different positions.
Yeah, I like that, Joe. Find a move that you're good at, that you like, that you're going to get in that position. I think you almost have to start with your bread and butter, your brick, per se, and find something, ask your coach and find something that works off of that. And it doesn't have to be two submissions. It can be a, Kimura to a hip bump sweep. It can be a guillotine to a half butterfly sweep. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be submission to a submission.
I do want to throw this in there, that sometimes we roll with people who are pretty much new, and maybe they're athletic, or maybe they're just kind of wiry, which is the best description I usually get if I get anything positive about my movements. Wiry. No, but sometimes we roll with somebody who's fairly new, and it's like, man, I should be able to do my whole system or this series of combination attacks to this person, and they don't work as well because this person isn't reacting. It seems weird to say, they're not reacting the way you think that they should, or they're not reacting in the right way. So they're escaping it the wrong way. Yeah, I was expecting them to escape my armbar in this manner, and they just totally did like a flip, and it was weird, and I don't understand what my combination, my whole thing is gone, and he's brand new. That happens. Now, is what they did probably full of mistakes? Yeah, probably is. Or maybe it's just a little bit more dangerous than most people want to do. But don't let that frustrate you. I guess what I'm saying is these systems, and I guess the combination is probably more especially, because once somebody's stuck in a system, it takes a lot of skill to get out of it. But once if you start a combination and it's just a basic attack, and you know they have 3 good options, and they take option 7 because they don't know what they're doing, it may not work so well. That's just, hopefully you have an answer for that, but sometimes people surprise you, and that's what that is. And you'll feel that, especially when you're new. You're like, man, he's new, and he just busted through my whatever. Well, that's because no one's done that to you before, because it's really kind of risky, or there's better ways to do it. And I'm sure there's holes in their escape, but you hadn't trained for it, you hadn't prepared for it. So just kind of recognize that. It happens sometimes. One way to find a cool system is just to model after your coach. If your coach has a similar game or body type, or you pick a teammate that has a similar game or body type that you do, and see, okay, what do they do? How is, like, okay, I like to pass the guard this way. Well, what is my teammate doing to get to that position? What takedown do they do to get to that guard? Or how, okay, Joe, how does he, he's sweeping from his guard, his half guard, and he's ended up in their half guard. During the sweep, he's doing something that makes their half guard pretty much useless. And that's kind of cool. Like, just ask people and utilize those around you. It's a little bit different than just watching a YouTube video, because people in your class or on your team can give you that feedback that it's hard to pick up from a video. So I think it's been fun talking about systems and combinations. It's definitely a part of jiu-jitsu that becomes more of an art form. I know myself, when I get somebody into a system I'm comfortable with, it's just a different feeling. Even if it's a competitive role, it's like, I got him, I got leg drag. I'm pretty confident at this point in the leg drag, I'm going to get his back. Like, it's just like, it's a feeling that it's going the way I want things to go. And sometimes it doesn't, but it's just like, Joe, when you get the arm in the sleeve, it's like, hey, I'm all right. I'm going to do some attacks here. Maybe they work, maybe they don't, but you're going to do some attacks. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's just a feeling you get, like things are going well for you at this moment, even though you haven't dominated the position necessarily, but you're getting things tipping in the right way.
I think that goes back to the brick meaning, Byron. We always talk about a move or a position you're really good at, your brick, and you get into your system, and you're just like, you just talked about Joe grabbing the collar and the sleeve, and it's like, okay, cool. I may have been getting smashed, or I may have been a step behind and everything, but hey, I'm in my happy place now. Let's go to work. I'm ready to punch in. And it does give you that. It's like it kind of reminds me of like a Bob Ross painting. You're where you're in your happy place. You're where you should be.
Gary, let me ask you this.
Bob Ross.
Yeah.
Gary, let me ask you this. What is the first thought in your head when you're rolling with somebody who you don't really know that well, and you get them like in your system? You've got their legs like tangled up, and this is pretty much where you want, and they just blow right through it. What's your thought in your head?
Man, it just breaks your heart. You lost your confidence. It's there's the mental thing, and when you break mentally, and this has happened so many times to me, they're like, man, that dude just got out of it easy. But so I break mentally, and I'm like, what the heck happened? But the good part is, then I go to work. Then, I start dissecting it afterwards. Like, hey, why sulk? Hey, this is an opportunity. Let's figure out what happened and let's get better at it. This is probably the best opportunity I had because somebody showed me my weakness or something that was wrong. Let's patch up these holes and, try to get a little bit better.
Gary, the way that you approach that, I think, is a perfect example of sort of the difference between grapplers that are getting good and those that might be getting great. And that is...
Well, I'm definitely not going to get great.
No, come on. If you're kind of rolling with somebody you don't know and you do a particular leg entanglement and they blow right through it, many people would be like, well, I'm going to try something different next time, that's for sure. But some people will say, I'm going to try the same thing because, man, I got to see what this guy's got. How in the heck did he do that? And you might try the same thing 4 or 5 times during the open mat, and that's not the definition of insanity because you're not necessarily getting the same result every time. You're getting a slightly better result every time, and you're kind of figuring it out. But I think that is the difference between somebody that's kind of just getting a little better, and there's nothing wrong with that. But people that get better in big steps, they embrace those learning opportunities.
Yeah, I just look at it every time I just get destroyed. It's probably the best thing that happens to me because my mind sits there and I think about that role. What did this person do? Why is this person so good? And that's what I like about jiu-jitsu. You can always learn. I mean, Joe and I, we're both 53 years old. I'm better than I was at 52. I'm better than I was at 51. And, I know we've talked. There's going to get that point where, my athletic ability, which is very, 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 very limited, will... I think I'll start going downhill a little bit, but I guarantee you I'm always going to be using this mind and researching, doing work to get better at positions. And I think this is a sport I can continue to get good at, into my 70s.
The other thing that Gary does, and I think everybody should do, I know I'm a big fan of it, is when somebody just takes apart your system with relative ease. It is heartbreaking. It is like, I remember being purple belt.
It's awful.
This guy just got it on my triangle. Like, that was nothing. As part of me thinks, well, he took the best part of my game and defeated it. Like, okay, he's a superior grappler. That's part of the match. Like, but the thing that you do, especially in the training room, is you talk to the person. Like Gary, he'll go back in that spot and try it again. But then he says, okay, what was up? Like, got anything? Like, they'll tell you what was happening there, what they saw differently. And you think that's disheartening. Try doing the system, and then you get attacked from within your own system, and it goes poorly. Like, if you don't ask questions about that, you're not doing it right. That person is now your coach. They should be helping you and mold you into a different direction because evidently you've made some mistakes in what you were doing, and they, with very little effort or energy or whatever, said, okay, I can do this, I don't know. That's just, and Gary does light up when somebody does well against him. He doesn't. It's not like he gets mad. He gets excited and he wants to get more rounds in, and then he gets real excited when they start talking and they share jiu-jitsu with each other. And I think that's the way it should be as well.
That's a good point.
I got one in.
Well, Joe probably gave you the idea.
Well, that's true. He's texting me.
Oh, come on.
Guys, let's cover the article here. We've got an article from BJJSpot.com, and it's 6 most common reasons people quit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I think this is good to look at. A, some of our listeners will quit Jiu-Jitsu, but B, man, your teammates, some of them are just going to drop off. And if you could kind of see it coming a little bit ahead of time or maybe help them out, sometimes jiu-jitsu just isn't right, for whatever's going on in your life. But a lot of times when they come back, they're like, man, I wish I came back a long time ago. This is great. So it's a good article. We'll put a link in the show notes. Let's discuss this a little bit, gentlemen.
Injuries, I see, is the first one. And, I think that a lot. I mean, think about, Joe, Byron, think about how many people you've trained with and, all of a sudden you haven't seen them. It's been, a couple weeks and you ask one of your friends, oh, he hurt his neck, he hurt his wrist. I know this is one thing you were worried about in the COVID situation, Byron, with people stopping training, for COVID or for an injury that, when they're healed, they may not come back. They just got used to not going to the gym. And I know, Byron, you always say, hey, even if you're hurt, show up to the gym, watch your teammates practice, learn that way. But injuries, I've met so many people, and some of the injuries have been really bad where they can't come back. But it's injuries is huge.
Yeah, I would agree. Both big injuries, like one time, but I think probably the bigger part is the nagging injuries, especially as you get older. And man, sometimes just everything hurts.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm not embarrassed to admit this, but I'm telling you, this last year, my body is taking a beating. As Byron knows, I've had a lot of injuries, previously, but I haven't really had any injuries, pulled muscles or anything. But man, I've thought a couple times this year, maybe this is it. And it's not from, chronic pulled muscles. It's just, waking up and everything hurts. And but what I realize I have to do is, I just got to tone down the intensity, take a day off. Today I actually did nothing but coach a session of basketball. And so, it's just some days when I'm like, is this worth it? And then I look back at what jiu-jitsu does for me, and it shapes my life. It makes me happy. And, so I just have to modify things a little bit. But I can't say I've really ever had that thought cross my mind except for like this last year. Has it ever creeped into my mind?
Got to train smart, old man.
That's true. Yep.
Hey, I don't want to knock two out at the same time, but I kind of feel compelled to, because number 5 is blue belt, and they talk about blue belt blues. And I asked my coach about that about 6 months ago. We had a conversation about it, and his theory for why so many people drop out of blue belt goes back to the article's point number 2, which is expectations versus reality. The way my coach worded it was that, so many people come in as white belt, and within the first month or two of training, they see some really good blue belts. And they don't take into consideration these blue belts, how long they've been training, how much they compete, what their athletic ability is. They just see some of the really good blue belts, and they think, when I get to be blue belt, I'm going to be that good. And then a year and a half or whatever, 2 years later, they get their blue belt. And I don't know about you guys, but when I got my blue belt, I was still just a really good white belt for a while. And that can kind of be eye-opening. Like, you expected that a new guy could not come off the street and beat you once you got your blue belt. Like, you were unbeatable by a new guy off the street, unbeatable by somebody in their first 6 weeks of training. And then you get blue belt and you find out that maybe that's not true. A wrestler comes in, a big guy comes in, whatever. So, yeah, I can see how expectations versus reality could discourage some people and cause them to quit.
Joe, I like how you put those together, and I like it. What your coach brought into there too when you were asking that question. I really like the analogy of, you think at that point you're going to be able to take everybody, below you. And
Gary, we lost you. Joe,
I think what Gary was saying is that not every blue belt's unbeatable, and sometimes you lead yourself to believe that's going to be the case before you get there.
It's just not the case.
Gary's back.
You're right. It's just not the case.
Good point, Gary. Gary, if I could award the Internet Award to you, I'd give it to you.
Absolutely, Gary. You just won the Internet.
His audio cuts out completely. He comes back at just the right time.
At the right time.
That was perfect.
But no, kind of going back to what you said after my getting cut off here for a second is, you have to realize that not everybody's the same. Joe and I are a little bit older. Some people, it's their life that they want to compete. And I just have to are you learning? And I know it's easy to say because we got another one that talks about lack of progress. And, there's going to be times where we're not learning. We do have lack of progress, but let's just push through it. Let's persevere and let's just use the lessons that jiu-jitsu can teach us. That just keep them with it, persevere, stick with it, and you'll break out of that slump. But I really liked what your coach Fernando said there. I thought that was very profound.
Yeah, that's a good point there. So I want to take one of these, either lack of visible progress or people, and then we could wrap it up. Which one should I take, guys?
Oh, shoot. How about the lack of visible progress? Because that's more addressable.
Okay. The lack of visible progress in your jiu-jitsu. So I think one of the big things is just to own your jiu-jitsu and say, my progression in my jiu-jitsu is up to me. And if maybe your coach is not teaching stuff you're interested in, or whatever, do a little automat training, and get something, maybe take an online course or something like that. Or the podcast probably won't be the right thing to help you out, but it's just to own your training and own your own development and where do you want to take your game. And yes, you have your coach and your teammates to guide you and help you on the way, but don't just expect to just show up at 5:30 to 6:30 or 7 or whatever, and things are going to be like magic, and you will get better over time. But I think another key word in this is the lack of visible progress. This is somebody this hits the beginners more than anybody. You come in your first day, you know what? You're not going to be that great. You kind of probably expect that. It's rough, it's jiu-jitsu, it's a rough sport. Come in the next week, you come in several times, the whole month goes by. It's like, man, I haven't learned a thing. It's been a whole month. 2 months goes by. You still haven't submitted anybody. You haven't even got a sweep. Here's what's happening to you. All this laid out. You are learning in jiu-jitsu. You're learning a lot about jiu-jitsu. You're learning a lot about the way your body moves. You're learning about how other people can move and things to do and things to not do. You're learning a lot. You're making a lot of progress. But the problem is you're in a room full of people who do jiu-jitsu. And here's the other issue is when another new person comes in, that's when it's fun. But it shouldn't be fun at their expense. Like, I hate seeing that. Somebody, after 2 months, we become friends. It doesn't take that long. And I'm hoping that you stick with jiu-jitsu, but I can't make it do anything. And then somebody else comes in, and it's like, your jiu-jitsu is working for you. I'm watching you roll with this person, and you're getting close, and damn, you got that Kimura, awesome. And it's just like, I know that's a good day for that person. But I don't want it to be a bad day for the other person. Their first day or second day was just getting smashed by this 3-month, person. I think it's imperative as upper belts and coaches that we recognize progress when we see it. And it doesn't, I'm not putting belt and stripes on people very often, but it's oftentimes after a roll. Like, Joe, when I saw you at the last BJJBrick camp, we rolled a bit, and then we rolled again before the whole COVID thing when I came down to Texas. Your half guard game was way more difficult to deal with. It was like, man, Joe's throwing a lot at me here. Like, a lot. Did I say anything? I don't remember. Probably not. But I should have said, Joe, you surprised me with what you've been able to do with your half guard. Like, that's something I should have done. That's something that, although visible progress on Joe's end, he may not see it, but from what I remember, Joe's made a lot of progress. And just to call it out, and the best time I feel is just after that roll, or maybe just during the roll. Even, man, Joe hit that sweep. Man, that's awesome sweep. And just to, I guess that's not like a recognition of progress, but like at the end of a roll, just to say you've improved in this category, whatever it is. Keep working on that. I like that for your game. That's it. Simple. You could do it any belt level. I guess it's really not really great for a white belt to be telling a black belt, hey, man, your sweep has gotten a lot better. Okay, that may be out of place. But one white belt telling another white belt, that's fine. A blue belt who gets swept a white belt, and at the end of the roll, you guys fought hard, and it was a close little match. But, man, that sweep was really cool. Keep working on that. That goes a long way.
Byron, I just want to say this. I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. I just wish I had a friend that would actually have done that.
Damn. You'll make a friend someday, Joe.
Joe, the key word is friend, and Byron's not the most friendly type of guy. But hey, this just got me thinking of what you're saying too. But I think one thing a gym could learn from this, a coach. Man, watch your guys roll. I know we've talked about coaches rolling versus coaches coaching all the time, but man, it's great coming from me. It's great coming from Byron. It's great coming from Joe. But man, I just think this would really maybe help keep students too. Is if the coach would just go around and find something positive to say about every person that showed up that day. Pats on the back are so rewarding, but so little given out. I think people forget about that all the time. I can tell you that happens in the workplace a lot. People forget about it, but man, when you get that little pat on the back at the workplace or, on the jiu-jitsu match or on the wrestling match, it means a lot. And, I just think, the more positivity that comes from the coach, not necessarily just teammates you want it there too, but I just think, it permeates. If the coach is leading that way, it's going to permeate. His other black belts are going to do it. His brown belts are going to do it. His purple belts are going to do it. His blue belts are going to do it. And then pretty soon you're going to have the nicest gym in town.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Gary. I would just add that for anybody out there, and I hope people listening to this are considering, put a little more effort into this and complimenting their teammates. The more specific you are, the more meaningful it is. It's one thing to have somebody say, "Oh, great match," or "Good training today," but when somebody I respect comes up and starts, "Your grips were really good," or "The way you defended my sweep attempts was really good," that means more from me, and I learn more from it too. That prompts me to think about those things and what I might have done well or what I could do better.
Yeah, and don't necessarily go overboard because, I know the last time I rolled with Joe, he brought me flowers and was talking about how good I am. And, it kind of creeped me out a little bit.
Gary, what you didn't see is behind the building, he had a casket that was going to put you in. It didn't work out for him. I'm going to murder that guy.
Have a plan B.
There's the combination, Joe. Flowers to the casket.
Oh, man. I'll put a link to the article in the show notes. Check it out. It's on BjjSpot.com. And we did not, read it word for word. We didn't read any of it, really. We just used the main points that they made. And it's important to know this because this is happening. If it's not happening to you, it's happening to your teammates. And if you see a teammate that got injured or who feels like they're frustrated, just know that their risk of quitting is fairly high at that point. So help them out. Sometimes a phone call could change the course of someone's jiu-jitsu. I want to give a quick shout out to our two newest Patreon supporters, Peter McLean and Brian Hendricks. Thank you guys for the support on Patreon. If you want to help out the podcast, you can support us on a per episode basis. Go to the link in the show notes and find our Patreon page there and pledge whatever you feel is good per episode, and we really appreciate that. I'll mail you out a 5-inch BJJBrick gi patch and a couple of stickers as well. And Peter, you're fairly new to the Patreon support team. If you want to join the private Facebook group, send me a message on Facebook or send me a link to your Facebook page in the email bjjbrick@gmail.com, and I'll get you added in there, my friend. We do a little behind-the-scenes stuff and chatting about episodes sometimes. Quick update on what's happening with the next episode. So, when will that be? Well, we'll do it next month. At the end of the month, we'll do a topic episode. That's for sure. But I don't know when I'll get out the episode I've been working on. So I'm working on right now the story of Kimura and what he did and how it unfolded. And I'm working on kind of creating that as a fun to listen to story that sets a lot of things straight, because as I learned about this story, almost everything I knew about it was wrong. And that might come out before the next, month. It may not. I don't know. I want to take my time and do it right and learn as much as I can and really absorb this story before I deliver it. But I hopefully will get it done before then. But it'll be done when it's done, my friends. I really enjoyed sitting down with you guys and recording this week. month.
Nice. Hey, before we go, I just want to make a public service announcement. Anybody that's listening, you may have toddlers at home. I have a 3.5-year-old grandson at home. Don't underestimate the value of children's games for aerobic exercises. I played red light, green light today for about a half an hour with Sebastian. I felt like I ran wind sprints in the gym. So there you go.
That's awesome. I don't know where you're going with that. I'm like, oh boy, what happened? Oh, Joe got destroyed in red light, green light by his grandson.
Man, I tell you, that kid, he's like red light, green light, red light, green light. And man, you're running up and down the driveway as fast as you can. And he's ruthless. If you move at the wrong time, you got to start over. So
he's going to be a great coach. If he wants. He's got a lot of options, doesn't he? All right, guys. Well, it's been fun. We'll catch you next time. Till then, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to cook it till the baster pops out and then submit it.
I'm not even sure where to go with that. I'll just say train hard, train smart, get better, guys, and we'll see you on the mats.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can visit our website at BjjBrick.com for more good times. Swing by and like our Facebook page. Our email is BjjBrick@gmail.com.
You're making this guy so uncomfortable. You're turning the heat up. You're cooking this guy, and baster is going to pop out, and you're going to take it.
Oh, Gary. Oh, that's why we can't do every podcast every week.
Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way.
And just when I thought we were
that much
friends.
pressure.
Yeah. No, I just meant Joe was cooking that guy so bad that he's done, which I meant the baster is popping out, and then Joe's submitting whatever limb pops.
Keep talking.
You're not
I put myself in
yourself.
deeper hole.